the 49ers faced the Los Angeles Rams in LA and lost at a last with the last second field goal against the Rams in a game that a lot of people expected them to win. So, what do you think went wrong for the Niners in this one?
For the Niners, I mean, for the most part, like they were up by 14 points, right? And I think one of the biggest momentum shifters for the Rams is when they got that fake punt, right? They got the fake punt. They were able to go down and score 7 points, and they were, in my eyes, like in that game. They had that. I mean, for the Rams, it uh, they got blown out by Juwan Jennings, but for the most part, I feel like they did a really good job against Jordan Mason. That was like the one guy that the Niners have used like the first 2 weeks and just ran it down people's throats, right? Um, Juwan Jennings was definitely a big problem for them, and I mean, rightfully so. That secondary is probably like a bottom five secondary, whatnot. But I mean, it still goes back to I still don't. Brandon Ayuk is still just not that player, the same player as he was last year, right? Whether it was the Rams doing a good job against him or him dropping passes, but this shouldn't take anything away from Purdy's performance. I feel like Purdy did a really, really good job. I know he did have a fumble, but that fumble resulted in 0 points, right, for the Rams, which is a good job by the Niners defense. But as far as for the Niners defense, I think they were having trouble stopping the Rams for the most part, right? They let up 27 points. They let up a deep ball to Tutu Atwell when they really needed a stop, right? When he was able to get a pass over Mooney. Um, yeah, but at the same time, I do think that it wasn't too bad for the Niners, right? I think they didn't allow a single receiver to go over 100. I know there was an there's a PI on Tutu Atwell that where if he caught the ball, he would have probably been over 100 yards. But for the most part, I feel like it was a good game for Purdy, good game for John Jennings. Not so good overall game for the Niners defense.
Yeah, I feel this. I feel pretty similarly. I mean, the defense and special teams is what let the team down. I think special teams it's very key to mention the fact that special teams let them down, whether it be the fake the fake punt going back to last week having a block punt. I mean, those are two plays that could potentially be the difference between this team being 3-0 and 1-2. Potentially, of course, not to guarantee anything. I mean, the fake punt in this game probably is the difference, or not. It's not the sole difference, but if they didn't get that fake punt off and get those 7 points before halftime, the Niners most likely are coming away with this game. I mean, regardless, it shouldn't have mattered whether they got that fake punt or not. There was a lot of other mistakes, but special teams has done this team no favors the last 2 weeks, and that's honestly just inexcusable. And you heard Kyle Shannon today at his press conference say that the special teams just was not prepared uh, well enough to their standard, and so he's calling that unit out uh, as they should because it's just unacceptable to be losing because of special teams. So and on top of that, you got a missed field goal from Jake Moody. I'm not gonna maybe get on him too hard. It was a 55 yarder, but I mean, you're drafted in the third round. You're supposed to you're supposed to be able to hit a 55 yarder. I mean, they had a rookie 6th round kicker come in and hit a game winner. Which, for example, last year Jake Moody had to hit a game winner against the Cleveland Browns and missed the kick. So I don't. I think I'm still kind of skeptical and a little bit shaky on our kicker position. And then return or coverage, punt coverage. Um, they let up a bunch of yards there, and that also cost them towards the end of the game. And then going back to the defense, I would say this is like you said, they gave up that big play to Tutu Atwell. You had Travarius Ward supposed to supposed to be covering him um, pretty much 1-on-1, and Travarius Ward was not really fully healthy going into the week. He had a knee and a hamstring.
Hamstring, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, knee and a hamstring. and they put their fastest guy on him, and he got burnt. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much. I'm not sure how much you could expect out of Ward in that situation, because I mean something like that is kind of understandable to happen. I feel, because of the fact that he was dealing with injuries and they have a very fast player on him. He could have probably done a little bit of a better job, but I feel like, in my opinion, that's more on a coordinator to be able to protect a guy that's not 100% out there, or to not have him play, or something along those lines. And then you have Devondre Campbell to end the game in man coverage, and um, committing a PI, and that's not something that, as a defensive coordinator, you got to figure out a way to not have that happen. You don't want Devondre Campbell in man coverage at this point of his career, or and so yeah, I would say there's just a lot of issues with the defense. I mean, the 49ers are not getting really much out of their pass rush. Going into the season, I thought this would be the best. This would be the best. I thought this would be the best edge combination that they've had since 2019, once they added Leonard Floyd. But to be honest, I don't even think I've barely even seen Leonard Floyd on the field the last two games. I've barely even seen any sort of an impact from him the last two games. So I mean, it's really just been all Nick Bosa when it comes to 49ers edge defenders. And so their D line is not doing what it's supposed to be doing for a team that's invested so much into this D line. But but yeah, so I mean, D line, and then just, the defensive coordinator, I think, are some of the issues that they have on defense. Offensively, to me, they did a pretty good job. I mean, Ayuk could have been a little bit better, of course, but I mean, there was definitely times, like, for example, that first touchdown Jawan Jennings had, where he was just absolutely wide open. I mean, there was one deep safety, and he just absolutely went and damn near doubled Ayuk on that play, leaving Jawan Jennings literally wide open. Um, and so I think that definitely helped Jawan Jennings have that big day. But I mean, you can't take away from I mean, some of those catches where he just like mossed somebody, or was able to just get open and create a lot of separation on his own. So Jawan Jennings, I mean, legacy game by Jawan Jennings right there. To be honest, I mean, that's he just dropped the most fantasy points out of anyone this year in fantasy. So I don't think anyone could have expected that. But um, yeah, I mean, offensively, I'm excited. I thought Purdy did a really good job. He had one misread where he could have potentially hit Ayuk on a deep ball that probably would have been able to end the game. But I mean, you're never going to be perfect. I mean, he 3 touchdowns, no picks. He was, I think, 21 or 28, or 22 or 28, something, 20 or 28, something around there. But I mean, I think of those, he had like, there was like 4 or 5 drops at least, something like that. Where, I mean, Ronnie Bell had a key drop at the end of the game that could have also uh, kept the chains moving, kept the Niners on the field, and kept them um, in contention to win the game. But I feel like I was content with Purdy's performance. I thought he did a good job, given the fact that, I mean, I honestly expected it. I think people were interested in seeing what would happen with no Debo, no CMC, no Kittle, and I mean, I think that this is what I would have expected. I always believed in Purdy as a player. I didn't think that he necessarily needed to have all of them around to have a good game. Now it definitely helps. The Rams don't have a very good defense and secondary, but I mean, you saw Purdy be able to create on his own. You saw Purdy be able to use his legs. You saw Purdy be able to uh, hit open guys in stride and throw for touchdowns and protect the ball. So, I mean, I think there's definitely, like, there's a level above what he did where he could put the team on his back a little bit more. But um, overall, I thought he played a really good game, and he did everything he did almost everything he could have done to help his team win this game. So defense and special teams honestly is a little bit worrying. Special teams, I hope they could get cleaned up, but defense, um, they're missing Dre Greenlaw right now, and defensive end, uh, and pass rush in general, they're lacking there, and it doesn't help.
I feel like Stafford was a little bit too comfortable sometimes. We're used to him being like under like distress like all the time when he plays the Niners. Like
Yeah, especially given the fact that their offensive line is not is hurt and banged up, and I think they may have had one guy coming back from injury, but regardless, their offensive line is not what it's not at 100%. It shouldn't look that way. I mean, it's kind of weird watching a Niners defense play and not seeing their defensive line like wreak havoc at all, and it doesn't help now that Javon Hargrave is out for the season. So
oh, he's out for the season now.
yeah, he had a torn tricep,
Oh, I see. Okay.
out for the year.
Yeah. I would say that I definitely am still a little bit concerned for the Niners just because I wouldn't have expected them to be 1-2, 3 games into the season, right? Uh, I know. I mean, they still have to play a bunch of good teams that they have in their schedule, right? They have like the Chiefs. They have like, I mean, just the way the Seahawks are playing right now, right? The 3-0, those teams. I mean, it does help that they're going to play the Patriots next week. So, I mean, I would definitely like to see them show that they're still like one of the great teams in the NFL, especially against a Patriots team that definitely lacks a lot of talent, right? And yeah, so going forward, the, this better be the bottom for like the 49ers, right? 1-2, back like almost backs against the wall. I mean, they're tied for bottom of the division. Like it seems like the Seahawks might win the division. So there's a lot of improvement that needs to be done for this 49ers team.
Yeah, to be honest, this is the most concerned I've ever been about this team in the last. I mean, we're not going to count the years when everyone got hurt, but out of almost all the years that since the Niners have been good, this is probably the most concerned I've been. I guess because my expectation was Super Bowl, but I think this is probably the most pathetic loss that this team has had since um, since the Niners have been good. I mean, the Rams are not a good team. When you play teams that are not good, they're not gonna sit back and just play traditional football. They're not gonna sit back and play sound football. If you play sound football when you're lacking personnel and your team is not as good, you're just gonna lose. When your team is not as good, you have to take chances. You have to have a fake punt. You have to take shots down the field. You have to play defenses that aren't necessarily going to be as sound, but could potentially pay off in a big way. And so the Niners, they should have known what to expect. They play this team twice a year. They're far better. Their offense came prepared, and their defense and special teams just absolutely let them down. And against a team that was without Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, so and with a pretty banged up offensive line, I just think the fact that the Rams were able to do what they did against this team, especially in the second half, it's kind of actually worrisome, I would say, for this team. I don't know if they can. The reason I say it's worrisome is I don't know if they can fix this defensive line issue this year anymore. I don't know if they can. I don't know. It seems like they've been giving up big plays deep down the field for the second game in a row. I don't know if they can fix the fact that Nick Sorensen is the defensive coordinator. Now, I know it's only 3 games into him being defensive coordinator, so we're going to have to see. But a Super Bowl bound team with a first time defensive coordinator, you don't know what you're going to get. and it's early, so we're just gonna have to wait. But I don't know if it's gonna end up being good. So the special teams, I think they can get it together. And another thing with their kicker, I don't know if I trust their kicker. So those to me are three big question marks for this team going forward that are going to be on the top of my mind when I'm watching the games, and I'm not sure how they're going to play out, and it's a little bit worrisome for me as a fan.
Yeah. I mean, this is just something I was thinking about the other day. I just hope that they also don't try rushing some of their players back against the Chiefs game, because that game is coming up pretty soon, and like I think a lot of the players might be eligible to come off of IR, it'll be like the 4-game period, and like I'm just hoping that they don't rush their player just because like it's a revenge game. Because for me, like you really can't take revenge for a Super Bowl loss in the regular season, and I mean this is just one game in a 17-game season, where like you have to consider your players' health going into the postseason and like finishing these 17 games. So like, that's just something that I was considering for the Niners, especially since players like I think Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, the two main ones for sure.
When is that? Is that week 5 or 7 or?
I think it's the Patriots, Seahawks, and Chiefs.
Okay. Oh, no, Patriots, Cardinals, Seahawks, Chiefs.
Oh, so yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that's week 7. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. They said CMC went to Germany to see a specialist for his Achilles. Who knows when he's going to be back?
That's a little bit scary to me.
Yeah, that
like
sounds
needing to go overseas.
That sounds desperate. That sounds, yeah. That's it's not looking good, but I mean, this team better bounce back in a big way against the Patriots. I think if you're gonna, for me, if you're gonna see if this defense has potential to be good this year, if this defense has potential to overcome the issues that I talked about, I think you'll see it this week against the Patriots. If you're not going to see it this week after the embarrassing loss that they had, that just means it's not in them, I think.